What is going on, YouTube and all you Draconians in Draco Nation? Draco Invictus here with my thoughts on Black Widow. And of course, it's going to be spoiler free. I'm going to try and keep this as concise as possible. Unlike the film in some spots. That's a prelude to what we're going to talk about. But no, I'm going to keep it spoiler free. We're going to talk about pros. We're going to talk about cons, my overall thoughts on the film. And let's just jump right into it. This is a movie out of time. Now, what do I mean? This movie should have been after Civil War. Like, right after Civil War. Within one or two films in the MCU timeline. Right there in Civil War. Or after Civil War. Because that's what the entire story's about. It's this time is physically takes place after the events of Civil War. And yet, there's one scene in the film that forces it to be in Phase 4. So that's why it's a movie out of time. Because it technically belongs in both places. But it's not, I don't know. And the scene is actually a post-credit scene that makes it imperative for Phase 4. So, knowing that, this wasn't a Black Widow movie. Yes, it says Black Widow on the title card. Yes, it stars Scarlett Johansson, who did a fantastic job, as always, as Black Widow. Lovers Black Widow. I'm okay. But this wasn't a Black Widow film. This was an introduction, an origin story for Crimson Widow. That's exactly what this is, and that's why this film is placed where it is in the MCU timeline. Florence, whatever her last name is, and the reason I say that is because I've looked it up, and it could be pronounced a few different ways. No matter which way I say it, I'm sure I'll be wrong and hear about it in the comment section. I'm not even going to bother. Her first name is Florence, and she plays Crimson Widow. So that's how we're going to reference her the rest of the film. This was really about her. And why do I say that? Because at the very beginning of the movie, it's two young girls. It is a young Natasha and a young Yelena. And it's them as sisters. And that's how the film starts, is just the two of them. And we learn more about Crimson Widow's character in this one film than we've learned about Black Widow in all of the films, including this one. Now let me get to you why I say that. One of the big cons of this film is that there's not enough origin. I mean, of course we all know who Black Widow is by this point. But I wanted to see, how did Natasha become Black Widow? And I didn't get nearly enough of that in this film. And while we didn't get a lot of that with Crimson Widow either, because because of the jumps that they made in the story, we just know more about her. Because she tells us more. I mean, we know what her dreams are. We just learn more through the story than we've ever learned from Black Widow. And it's sad. And I wanted more. I wanted, if this was Black Widow's one and only solo film, this is her movie, I felt a little let down that I didn't get enough of the transformation from a young girl into a badass super spy. And we don't need to be told why, looking at you, Captain Marvel. We know that Natasha is a badass super spy. I wanted to see some of that upbringing, some of that character building. Didn't get to see enough of it. That's the biggest con that I have with this film. Another one is that the movie is not very concise at times. Normally, when I look back on a movie, I'll be, sitting in my car or sitting at home going, you know, that movie could have been 15 minutes shorter, or 20 minutes shorter, or, you know, that scene went on too long, in retrospect. But when I'm watching the movie, going, okay, this scene's too long. Nope, should have ended 2 minutes ago. We need to move forward. And I'm not one that needs action all the time. I want the roller coaster. I want the ups and downs. I want the big action scenes, and then I want the character building scenes. You know, I want the funny moments. I want those things. But when a scene goes on for 5 minutes that could have been done in 3, that's what I'm talking about. It feels like they said, hey, we shot all this footage, put it in. Don't bother cutting it. Don't bother editing it at all. Just put it all in. Okay. If that's how you want the story to be told, you missed the mark. Because there were several moments that I found myself going, God, this is going on too long. God, if I was in a theater right now, I'd be like, this is the time to go to the bathroom. This is the time for the bio break, because there's nothing new being added at this point. It's all just filler. And normally, I don't care if a movie's 2 hours long, or an hour and a half, or 3.5 hours. If it hooks me the whole time, I don't care. I just want to be hooked the whole time. Whether it's a badass fight scene or it's great character development, just keep me enthralled. And the movie failed to do that quite a few times. Huge con for me. I'm trying to think any other big cons that I might want to talk about here. Let's see. No, not cast. No, I think maybe we're done. Maybe we're done with cons. Now, of course, if something pops back into my head, I'll jump on it. Let's talk about some of the pros of this movie. The casting. Fantastic. Across the board. Across the board. Everyone played the part that they needed to play, and they played it well. From, obviously, Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. She's lived Black Widow for years. Perfect. Florence, fantastic as Crimson Widow. We learn in the film, and this is no spoiler, but she is as much a badass as Black Widow is. So we don't have to worry moving forward. Hey, we got a Black Widow replacement for that, but she is not a clone of Black Widow, which is what we don't want, right? At least I don't want it. I don't want Black Widow 2.0. I want a widow that has her own personality, that brings something different. And Florence, aka Crimson Widow, does it fantastically. She is wittier, sarcastic. She pokes fun at Natasha throughout the film for like her little poses that she does and stuff like that. And I think it's great that she has her own personality, which is what we want. We want something, hey, look, here's a replacement. It's like, I don't want someone else to get in the Iron Man suit. I don't need Iron Man 2.0. Just give me someone that fills the role that Iron Man played. And when I say role, I mean role in the team, not like acting role. So yeah, she does a fantastic job. And the supporting cast are wonderful. Taskmaster's played incredibly well. Big props to the fight choreographers, because Taskmaster's thing is that they kind of mimic who they're fighting. And there's a scene where, and it's very early in the film, where Taskmaster and Black Widow are going at it. And to see Natasha do one of her signature things and then have it used against her because Taskmaster mimicked her was, I mean, like, I was like, what? It was great. It was great. And to see Taskmaster fight people on their own terms with their own things was wonderfully done. And like I said, huge props to the fight choreographers for putting that together, because to watch Natasha do a signature move on Taskmaster counter it with the same move and turn it back on her was very, very well done. Very well done. And so that was great. The rest of the supporting cast, perfect. They were some comic relief and some funny quips, and just they fit all the niches that we need them to fit. And so I have no complaints about casting whatsoever. Now, of course, some of them may not be right to the comic books, but honestly, it's not that the comic books don't matter, but remember, the MCU is its own thing. The MCU has always kind of done a twist with most things taken from the comic books. They use the comic books as the source material, but then they make it their own because it is the MCU universe. It's the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So things are going to be slightly different. So much like having Idris Elba play Heimdall. You know, I remember people were all up in arms. Oh my God. You know, he can't be Heimdall. Are you kidding? He was fantastic as Heimdall. All you got to do is watch him for 5 minutes and go, yep, sign me up. I'm good. So I'm okay if they make little changes, like, oh, this character was supposed to be white, or this character was supposed to be Asian, or this character was supposed to be, you know, pink with, you know, from another world. And because that's how they were in the comics, and MCU does it a little bit differently, I'm okay with that. You know, Heimdall, Idris Elba, fantastic. Bring it. So if there's something like that in this film, because I haven't read all the comics, that I don't know about, understand that I'm okay with it. Did they do the role justice? That's all I care about. Did they make the film better, or did that decision make the film worse? And I can't see how anything with like casting decisions could have made anything better. I think that it was fantastic the way it was. And let me just say that Marvel's de-aging process has gotten even better. Every film, it gets better when they bring back one of these old actors. Yes, I'm looking at you, William Hurt. And they de-age them, because he was definitely de-aged in that film, and he looked great. Other pros. It had a post-credit scene. It was sweet, but at the same time, it kind of anchors it in Phase 4, and it definitely gives more props for things in the future. The thing that I'm afraid of is that it's not going to be, that the end credit scene isn't going to be about the next film or one of the next films. It's going to be about the next TV show. And that kind of bums me out. Because, again, not everyone has Disney Plus. Not everyone wants Disney Plus, but they still want their Marvel movies. And now you're going to be stripping that. You're going to be taking some of that away. And that kind of bums me out. But, yeah, I think that about covers it. As far as rating goes, character development was great with Crimson Widow. So I want to give it like a 9 there. Because I really understand who she is, what her motivations are, and stuff like that. So that's really good to do. But then there were scenes that weren't tight, and they should have been, to keep the hook in. I gotta go like a 7.5. Yeah, somewhere around there. Do I recommend you watch this film? If you're a Marvel fan, because this is a formulaic Marvel movie. It didn't push anything out of the bounds. It didn't expand much of anything. It was very formula Marvel. But if you're a Marvel MCU fan, absolutely watch the movie. There's nothing, oh my God, wrong with this film. You're going to get Marvel. That's what you're going to get. So yeah, if you're not a Marvel fan, don't let this be your first film. I mean, definitely watch it. Definitely watch it. But don't let this be your first foray into the MCU, into the Marvel universe of films. There are much, much better. Honestly, I'd say start at the beginning. Start at Iron Man 1 and work your way through 24 films. Because, yeah. This is really, really meant. I mean, I remember when I first showed my mom the first Iron Man, she was hooked. She was like, oh my God, this is such a great film. And then I just started showing her. And then we caught up with the theatrical releases. So then she wanted to go with me to watch the next movie. I'd drive out to her house, pick her up, and we'd go have a great day. Because my mom became a huge Marvel fan. But if I'd thrown her in with Thor as the first film, it may not have gone so well. She fell in love with Tony Stark. She fell in love with Iron Man. She wanted more. And then as the MCU universe started to expand, she wanted to go along for that ride. So yeah, if you're thinking about this as your first jump into the MCU universe, don't do it. Don't do it. Go back. Watch some of the older ones. Watch the first Iron Man for sure. Because that is really kind of what sets the tone for the MCU. But that is going to wrap it up for me. I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out, tuning in. And as more films come out, of course, I'm going to be talking about them. I'll be posting them here on my YouTube channel. Because, let's see, comic book movies definitely fits into nerd culture. And it's so great to see that so many more people are embracing their inner nerd and checking out stuff like that, like the MCU and comic book movies, and yeah, so it's good. Anyway, until next time, I want you guys to take care of yourselves out there. This is 𝐂𝐴𝐚𝐧𝐬𝐭 saying this has been the greatest day in my life. See ya.